Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Mending Threads, your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. Well, this morning, we've been talking about stress and trauma during the pandemic, during the floods, and just looking at all of the circumstances that we are experiencing and how it has affected our bodies and our minds. And this is a transformation series. So we will be looking at how the topic, not only the impact of the topic for us, but we will be looking at how can we change, restore, and transform. This is what it's all about. So we have with us some special guests to handle the topic this morning: trauma and human trafficking, restoring through responses and resources. So we have with us Sister Mama Sonia, and we have Dr. Brinkley Webb with us. And I want to say welcome this morning. Welcome, everybody.
Oh, I hope I make it back home on time. I really want to get there because I want to be at the reception. It's so good to be going home. Mom and daddy on their way. You see, I snuck out the house last night. Well, no, it's been 2 or 3 days, I guess. And I wanted to go to this audition at this hotel over in Southeast Houston. And I went. Although mom and daddy said no, I snuck out of the house and I went. And it was a motel or something. And when I went in there, they told me to sit in the front, and I sat in the front, and there was like 2 rooms. And when I was in the front, they gave me you want some Hawaiian punch? Well, it was in a carton, so Mama said never take a drink from anybody if it's open, never. Well, it wasn't open, so I opened the Hawaiian punch and drank it. And I was sitting there, and I said I feel woozy. And before I knew it, they took me to this other room. They said, "Oh, you're gonna have to change for the audition." Now, I never heard of that. See, I want to be an actress, and I do some auditions at some theaters, but I never heard of that. But I was feeling so woozy. I went back there, and when I got back there, it, went, it was a back room, and in the back room was another room, and there were these 4 girls. There were like 5 beds in there. I've never seen a hotel room like that. And the other girl said, they got another one. And I said, girl, what you do? I said, I'm a singer. I was coming to an audition. I can sing and act. They said, well, yeah, I'm a dancer. I thought so too. And this guy came in and made me put on these clothes. And I didn't want to wear them because they were just, they just made me look real fast. I don't want to be no fast girl. So, but I had to. I put on the clothes. And I was just sitting there, just wondering how could I get back to mom and daddy because they took my purse. And all of a sudden, the guy came in and he said, "Okay, it's your turn." And all the girls just got real quiet. He tried to kiss me, and I said, "Ugh, no, don't do that. That's just nasty." Then he started putting his hands all on me, and I said, "No, no, don't do that. Please don't do that." And he left. He said, "Don't worry, I'm gonna get you." And the girls came out and they said, "Well, he's never been like that with us. He made us do it the first time he came in." I said, "Made you do what?" She said, "Sex." I said, "No, no, I don't do that." I don't. He said, "Well, you here now." See, these people, they like to entice young girls in, and before you know it, we'll be. They said we'll be on the streets prostituting, and I can't do that. No, no. I'm just 15. I mean, I'm a straight A student in school. I don't know why I'm. Oh, one of the other girls said, "Yeah, you don't look like us," because 2 left home because their daddy kept messing with them. Another girl left home because she was on drugs, and they put her on there. And I didn't have none of that to do, but they got me in there. But the good thing was, my mama and daddy had put a tracking device on the car, and they were able to come and find me. And now that the cops said they sent the cops, and the cops said we're on their way. The other 2 little girls, the other 3 girls, rather, I hope they get some help because they didn't want to do it either. I found out later they called it human trafficking. Wow. I just hope other young girls don't go out there and do. If your mom and daddy said it's unsafe to go, don't go. Just don't go. Well, there's mom and daddy now. They outside. I gotta go. I gotta go. Please be safe. Please.
Mhm. Well, that just said it all, didn't it? That is really something, and that tends to be the experience that's described. And I understand that Houston is the number one city for human trafficking. Well, we're going to find out more about it. We have people that are going to talk about it this morning. So we have with us Dr. Brinkley Webb, uh, who is um, who is the CEO and I think founder of the Love Restorer uh, project. And so I wanted to hear from her to see how did she latch on to this? How did she find out the techniques or get involved with this? Share with us this morning. Good morning, Dr. Webb. Good morning.
Good morning. I just have one correction to make. We're actually Restoration Life Project.
Okay,
Love
yeah.
Restores is our slogan.
Okay,
Uh,
love restore is your slogan. Thank you. And
yes,
now where are you in the city of Houston?
yes, we are. We are
Okay.
located in the city of Houston, and we tend to work with organizations and individuals in the greater Houston area. So we don't limit our services just to the city limits, but we ourselves are located in the midst of the city.
Yes. What it sounds like the topic that Sister Mama Sonia was speaking about, that you're entrenched into this situation and actually developing programs or interventions around it. But I'd like to, if you could share with us, because there's some misconceptions about what human trafficking is and how does it come about. If the two of you could just talk a little bit about that, I'd appreciate it. Hmm.
Okay. One thing I want to say is that human trafficking is not the same as human smuggling. People often think they're one and the same. They're not. For example, in Houston, just last month, I believe there were two cases back to back of human smuggling, where they
Yeah.
found individuals that had been smuggled in across the border of Mexico into the United States. They found them here in Houston, and they were trying to come into the country illegal. They had paid a coyote to bring them into the country so that they could try to find a new life.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes those individuals do end up in human trafficking because they're very vulnerable. They're in a new country. They often are with people they don't really know, but most of the time they don't end up in human trafficking. With human trafficking, contrary to a popular myth, it is not just people from other countries. Now, don't misunderstand me. There are people brought from other countries here to the United States for the sole purpose of being modern day slaves, because that's what human trafficking is modern day slavery. So
Hmm.
there are individuals brought from other countries, but a lot of times we think that Americans aren't involved in human trafficking, but they are. The
Hmm.
situation that Sister Mama Sonia just portrayed in her brief skit is not uncommon.
Hmm. I
Not
know that
uncommon.
I have talked to in my practice of mental health with young people. I have talked to many young persons who even the trap. There's a different form where they even have young girls, fearful of their families and have them come out at night.
Yes,
They go home and come out at night, where some people think that they leave home all the time. You see, but
you're right.
that's a little
Yeah.
different.
Yes, I
Hmm.
was going to mention that. Yes, sometimes they'll leave them at home. They'll even still let them go to school. They even still let them go to college. Some of them are college students. I've actually spoken with a student. Of course, out of respect for her, I will not say her name, but she is a
Right.
University of Houston student that is
Yeah.
currently involved in trafficking.
Right. So now, what is the distinction? So smuggling is coming. is trying to get coming into the country voluntarily.
Yes.
So trafficking is coming into the country or just being involved in a situation undesirable. You're not desiring to be in that
Well,
situation.
by force. I mean, that's the very definition of human trafficking.
Okay.
You're being coerced, you're being forced. That's our Homeland Security definition of human trafficking. Someone that's being coerced or forced or
Uh-huh.
threatened to comply, to
Yes.
engage in activities in the commercial sex trade, in labor trafficking. Because at Restoration Life Project, we do look at sex trafficking, we do work with sex trafficking, but we also work with labor trafficking.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
labor trafficking includes domestic servitude.
Yes. Now I have a new case with my office of persons um trying to get citizenship into the country and persons who are in authority having young people engage in practices to save their families so that their families will not be deported.
Mm.
So is that something like similar to human trafficking?
It may be, it may be because they look for traffickers look for vulnerabilities.
Uh-huh.
And any vulnerability that they can pick out, they will use to their benefit. You know, for the
Mm-hmm.
example, the young college student that I just mentioned, her
Yes.
trafficker promised to pay back all her student loans for her
Mm.
because that is an area of vulnerability and it's increasingly becoming so as college becomes more and more expensive.
Yes.
And more young people are faced with with looming debt because they wanted a higher education.
Mhm.
Yes.
And so traffickers are aware of that and they are using that vulnerability. The fact that most of us come out, I think the average now is 20, at least minimum of $20,000 in student loans. And that's not
Mhm.
including the interest you're going to pay back on it.
Mm.
You know, and so they are using that vulnerability. Okay, I'll pay you work for me. You get out here,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
prostitute yourself. I will pay back your student loans for you. And of course, they're not going to. They're most trafficking victims never see a dime of the money they make, other than what they use to buy them clothing and things like that, so that they would look quote unquote appropriate for what they're doing.
So
Mhm.
what does the research say other than the threat of it that keeps them involved? It would seem that they would begin to recognize that they could possibly do this on their own.
That the victims could do it on their own. Is that what
Yes,
you're
like
asking?
if someone, yes, I often wondered, and I used to also work with persons that considered ladies of the evening,
Hmm.
and um, and so many of them did find out that if I'm doing this, I could do it on my own. It was only the fear, but once they found ways to overcome the fear, then they figured out, well, then if I'm doing this and I'm so good, then I could actually do it for myself. You see,
Okay.
or I could have something else that I could do. Yes.
If they're doing it on their own, it's not trafficking. It is
Yes.
prostitution still, which is still illegal
Mm-hmm.
in our country, in most
Mm-hmm.
parts of our country. Um, but it's not trafficking. But it
Mm-hmm.
becomes trafficking the very moment, because a lot of times traffickers are very shrewd and smart. We don't often think that they are because of the line of work they choose to go in. And I'm using the line of work very lightly. Uh, but they will say, okay, yes, you're out here by yourself. I'm not trying to be your pimp or your trafficker. I'm just going to be your protector.
Mm.
You know, they'll say that. And so the woman will say, okay, yeah, you can look after me. You can have my back. But remember, I'm on my own.
Mhm.
But the moment they say that and they agree to that, they're really not. At that moment, they're really trafficking victims
Mm-hmm.
because he is not going to let her go. And he is going to make her give him all of her money that
Mhm.
she earned.
And some of them, I understand, set up a circumstance where you are attacked, and they save you. You
Yes, they
see,
do
and
all
then it
kind
makes
of
you
manipulation. They do all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of situations. So it's very, in other words, it's very hard for them to stay on their own out there these days because
Mm-hmm.
traffickers have techniques where they will use those techniques to get them to agree on their own. Like you said, they'll stage an attack. They will tell them, I'm just going to be your protector. Or they will even use what we call the Romeo effect.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
just like you. I just like you.
Yes,
I
you're
like you.
different.
You're a woman. I'm a man. I like you. You're my
You're
girlfriend.
different.
You're my
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend. So no, you're not one of my girls in my stable, but you're my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But they woo them, and then they'll use something like, okay, look, I'm in trouble with this guy. He's already had all my girls in my stable. He needs someone new. He wants someone new in order to pay off my debt I owe him. And since you're my girlfriend, I hate to ask you to do this, because you're my girlfriend. But if you're willing to do this just this one time, so this guy doesn't hurt me, I will love you even more.
Mm-hmm.
And whether we in prostitution or not, ladies, let's just be honest, we will often do a lot of things for the men we love.
Yes,
And
yes,
so
yes.
they will agree, okay, just this one time. But remember, she's already prostituting anyway. So she'll be like, just this one time, I'll do it for you so I can save you.
Mm-hmm. So
You
I,
know,
I I talked to this one man who considered himself. I don't know if they use the word pimp anymore, or
they
they
do it.
themselves. I don't know what they
Right.
call. But he used the tactic of, and it works very well. And we want to talk about self esteem and parenting, and it's just a whole lot of issues there for parents and people in the community to think about. But this man told me that the way that he got most of his girls, or most of them, is that he would start agreeing with them about their parents.
Yes.
Whatever the parents, he would say, you deserve more. Your parents are taking away from you all the things that you could do. So he would actually start whatever the parents were strict about, he would start giving them. So I asked him, how would you get these girls? How would you get the young girls? And he said, what I would do is, when you said Romeo effect, that made me think about it. So he said, what I would do is I would use exactly what they were struggling against with their parents. And I would start telling them that I was doing them a favor, of helping them understand all their potential that they have, and that their parents were taking it away from them. And they would use each little situation to constantly show them that, and they had them thinking that they were saving them. And each
Yes.
one, they would say, and I could, I really, to this day, trying to understand how, but like, I'm really taking care of you. I'm helping
Right.
you achieve your goal, and actually introduce that into their heads, and they buy into it.
Well,
So
that's
I,
another area of vulnerability. When we're
yeah,
teenagers, I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't matter how good the relationship we had with our parents were. All of us can list one area where we disagree strongly with our parents about.
yes,
One,
yes,
at
yes,
least one area. Now, we may now know as older adults, our parents were absolutely right in what they were saying. At least I know in my case, that would be the situation. They were absolutely right to say the things and do the things they did. But when I was 13 or 14, I thought that was horrendously cruel.
So the
And
story that Sister Mama Sonia was showing right then was like how this young girl did understand. I imagine that was a issue of contention about her parents tracking her. She didn't probably know that,
Right.
but
and see the little girl. Well, she was a teenager. As Dr. Webb said that it's crazy because kids, you think about it. When you were 15, did you know everything? Remember, y'all, we were the smartest things going. Nobody could tell us what to do. So when parents say no or do things in our best interest, young kids think they know so much that they go out there. So now there are a great deal of people on the street from human trafficking who come out of foster care, who are leaving bad situations, who may be drugged out. But there's some, like you all are saying, really come from fine homes. And when they leave, they get caught up, and then it's difficult for them to ever come back. And then they're part of that system.
Yes,
Yes, I mean,
yes.
by some records right now, there are approximately 79,000 minors in
Mm.
sex trafficking in the state of Texas. That's almost
Wow.
80,000.
Wow. Well, what?
And that's based on research done by the University of Texas Social Work Department.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, what do they find as the primary um motive of the young people of the people to get them involved? What do they find? Have they done the research to look at the motivating factor that leads toward this? I guess from a community perspective or a family perspective, because see, we have to see this.
Right.
People, we're seeing this all the time.
Again, it's what we've already been stating. Any level of vulnerability, traffickers will play on it. If a young lady or a young man, if they're not getting along with
Mhm.
mom and or dad, they're going to use that. If they are not getting along with their teachers at school, they're going to use that.
Mhm.
If they're not getting along with their siblings, they're going to use that. If they feel like an outcast and they don't seem to have any friends, well, they're going to be that friend.
And they do, and they ask the, so if they get one in the school, they will ask them, do you have anybody in the
Mhm.
school that seems to be by themselves that you can take care of or something, and they get you to go in thinking you're helping someone else, but
Mhm.
actually you're recruiting for them
They
within
are,
that same school.
yes, they are increasingly using other young people to recruit new individuals into their stables,
Mm-hmm,
to their
mm-hmm,
fold. That is becoming more and more the case. They will
mm-hmm,
even get young boys to do the Romeo effect. You
Mm.
know, especially they see a girl that normally boys aren't very attracted to at the school, and she probably does have self-esteem issues. I mean, most teenagers do, and but she
mm-hmm,
may really have some if she's not the most popular girl, she's not being asked out on dates, and then all of a sudden there's this young guy who's asking her out. And
Mhm.
now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every time that happens that means that it's a potential trafficking situation. Of course not. Sometimes he may really just like her,
Mhm.
mm-hmm,
but they do look for those kind of vulnerabilities, and they will use a young teenage boy to you know to be romantic towards her, and then
so,
he'll pull her in and say, look, I'm going to a party, you want to go to this party with me? And of course he's
mm-hmm,
taking her to the trafficker's house.
mm-hmm.
In
So
one case that I'm aware of, that's exactly what happened. She started going out with this guy. He told her, meet me at a house for a party. um she gets there, there's nobody else there yet but this older gentleman. The guy she was quote unquote dating wasn't there. There wasn't anyone there. And he told her, oh, you got the date wrong. The party is tomorrow night. Like it was a Friday night, and he told her that the party's tomorrow night. But, I was on my way out to dinner. Since you're here, you know, do you want to go out to dinner with me? And I know all of us are told not to go to a place with strangers, but again, like we just said, we think we know it all when we're teenagers. And she was
mm-hmm,
getting free dinner,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Mm.
and she went with him to the dinner. She went out to
Mm.
dinner with him, and instead of him, he told her he was going to drop her off at home afterwards. He did not. Of course, he brought her back to that house where she was at for the next 3 years in human trafficking.
Mm.
right. Mm-mm-mm. So there are a lot of things that's going on. Okay, so when this is happening, not only is the police involved, but I found out that the person who's doing the trafficking, the
Mm.
trafficker, would generally live in close proximity to to the people that they're trafficking. So or the person. So generally, that person is very close in the community.
Sometimes even closer than you think, because a lot of times, and this is an area that we really don't like to think about, but we must face. A lot of the times, it isn't like being taken by a stranger, like the movie Taken, for anyone who's seen that movie.
Yeah.
That does happen, but it isn't always like that. Sometimes, in fact, most people end up in trafficking because of someone they know.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
majority of it end up because of someone they know. That includes parents. I just read an article earlier this month about parents putting their own kids into trafficking. It was a very difficult article to read.
Hmm. So that
Um,
they described how they did it, or they
oh yes,
just
in
it's
some
sort of
cases,
like
why?
rehome
Usually it was just because they needed money, and they felt their child was an asset. You know,
and
or
felt the child would get over it or something, or it wouldn't be harmful to them.
I don't think they think about the negative effects. They think about the dollars, and I'm just being honest.
Uh
They think
huh.
about the income that that child can bring in.
Mhm.
You know, I mean,
Hmm.
we've even had a case here in Texas where, fortunately, I believe that he was reported before he actually did this, where a father he found out his teenage daughter was having sex, but, on her own with teenage boys.
Mhm.
And he decided that if you're going to be giving it away, you may as well be
Getting
bringing in
paid.
some money. Yeah, getting paid. And he was preparing to prostitute her out, but I think the first person he offered it to was a respectable person who turned him in.
Mhm.
He played
Mhm.
along, but he turned him in to the police.
Mm-hmm.
But he was
Mm-hmm.
going to, and that was right here in Texas. He was going to prostitute his own daughter because he found out she was having sex as a teenager.
Hmm. Boy,
I
son, it's
know.
just
Mhm. And I know of another situation where the father was a drug addict, sold his daughter and her best friend for $40
Mhm.
so he could get his next hit.
wow, wow. So now you mentioned something about this, you alluded to it or something. So is there a high prevalence of substance abuse that goes along with this, or are there other things that's involved that keeps this flowing?
Well, there's a lot of things that they use in the grooming process, and yes, illegal
Mhm.
substances and some legal ones, including alcohol, are commonplace. Because if you get someone addicted to drugs, they'll do almost anything to get the next fix, and they know that. So yes,
Hmm.
sometimes they will get them addicted to drugs intentionally because it's easier
Mhm.
to control them. If you
Yeah.
want your next, cocaine hit, your cocaine fix, you got to go over there and service those 10 men first. You know, when you're done, then I'll give it
Hmm.
to you. So that's
Right.
one way they can control them. They also use starvation. They will beat them. They will burn them. They will threaten their families, especially if they have a younger sibling. You know,
Hmm.
if they have a younger sister, they'll say, okay, if you don't cooperate, I'll just go over there and get little Janie.
Mhm.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I hear that a lot. I hear it a lot, and where the teenager's really trying to protect her sister
Mhm.
or
They will.
something like that.
And then
Hmm.
they may really have no intention of going to get Janie, but they know that that teenager doesn't know that because it might be harder to get little Janie, especially if big sister is already missing. Generally,
Mhm.
parents are paying more attention and holding on to the children they have left so that nothing will
Mhm.
happen to them. But so it's going
Hmm.
to be a lot harder for them to get, but they know a teenager isn't going to think like that. They're not going to think, no, mom
Mhm.
and dad are now watching little Jenny so closely, they could never get close to little Jenny. No, they're thinking, yes,
Hmm.
they can get her. They can get her. And so they will use techniques like that as part of the grooming process. And sometimes they'll just tell them, now that you've been used, because again I mentioned that they will use gang rape. And once the gang rape has taken place, they'll tell them, your parents won't want you back now. You're trash.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm. Hmm. Especially when I tell them when we're
Mhm.
gonna let them
Right.
know
We're gonna
all
let
everything.
them know, right. Either sometimes they videotaped it. And they'll be like, we'll show them this videotape. They're going to see you
Yes.
with 10 men, one after the other. You are trash. They're not going to want you back. Who would want a daughter that just did that?
Mm-hmm. Mm. So how does religion and belief and all of that tend to relate? Have you found any kind of correlation with that?
I haven't found actual studies that correlate with that, but this is my experience. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons I founded Restoration Life Project was because I am a member of the church. And as I began to talk to people, because I started out by volunteering with other anti-human trafficking organizations until I realized there was a void, and I created RLP, Restoration Life Project, to fill that void. But as I was working with other groups, and I started talking to people at my own church home, my own congregation, I realized how few people actually knew that human trafficking was a real thing, and that not only was it a real thing, it was happening right in our midst. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said earlier, Dr. Luke, Houston is for sex trafficking. Houston is the number one city for sex
Mm-hmm.
trafficking.
And
And
guess
Texas
what?
is the
They
second
said
place.
that that's what I was getting ready to say. California was first and Texas
California is
is
first.
second.
Yes. Hmm.
That's right.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. Could
And
you
but people
imagine
cannot
how many
believe.
people?
Mhm.
So
And they
is it the location? Is it the location of the borders? I was trying to understand it. Is it because um the highway system or
yes, we
the
have
border?
we have internet. I mean, we have the interstate highways of I-10 and 59/69, and that makes for easy access out and easy access in. We are close to the border. I know here in Houston, we don't often think we're close to the Mexican border, but when you're talking about driving or you're talking about, flying, we're not that far from the Mexican border. And then there's the Port of Houston. I know we don't
Yes,
like to think
yes.
about people being in those containers, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there are people in those containers.
Yes. I see we have with us, I see who's joining us this morning. She's coming on. It's going to be Miss Trinell Davis with Change Happens. Good morning, Miss Davis. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Lewis. I'm well. How are you all?
Just great. Welcome this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So we're talking about human trafficking, and I know that you have some program. We have with us Dr. Webb and Sister Mama Sonia with Three Sisters in the Spirit, and Dr. Webb is with, and I'm always messing it up, Restoration Life Project. So did I get it right this time?
Yes,
And
ma'am, you did, Dr. Lewis.
okay then. And so I know that you have been very helpful in the community and you're aware of the resources, and we're trying to work on this collaboration to really look at making a change and responding to this situation um, in a manner that's consistent with our beliefs, and consistent with making some healthy um, interventions. So, can you, Dr. Webb we were talking about things like situations in the environment that's related to human trafficking, persons that the young girls go through with the dynamics of how it occur. And then so many times they end up out there by themselves. So I thought maybe if you could help us also exchange, like Dr. Webb, how do you access? I have this question. Here we have all of this human trafficking going on. How is it that no one steps up? How is it we're allowing this to happen? What is it that I know I see things and I start asking, and sometimes people kind of move around, and I do go and report things, and people tell, oh, I wouldn't do that. So, what is it that we need to be aware of? What is it we need to do even before we start looking at resources? What is it that we ourselves can do and be aware of in the community, or be aware of with young people. And I know that Miss Davis works with a lot of young people too.
Well,
Um,
first we go ahead.
oh, well, no, I was going to first say that I've been knowing Dr. Lewis for quite some time, working with her, and I work at Change Happens. We're a nonprofit organization right there in Third Ward. Have been there for over 30 years, and we work with youth. We have several youth programs, so we've worked with youth for many years in various capacities. Um, we are not faith based, um, nor are we a human trafficking uh, organization where that's our main focus. But in working with youth, we do understand that collaboration, training is important, understanding human trafficking. And we have had many trainers come to Change Happens and discuss human trafficking because we realize that it is a real serious problem today. And the more we learn about it, the more insight that we have, the better equipped we are to work with the youth that we're working with. And we
Hmm.
serve as that prevention and intervention. So we're
Hmm.
working with the youth in high school, the community, faith-based organizations, um, summer programs, anywhere we can work with youth and help them to, for instance, boost their self-esteem, learn about making good, healthy choices, and about the consequences of the choices they choose.
Hmm.
Talking about drugs and alcohol and the effects and the different things. Talking about bullying, talking about human trafficking. The more that we can engage with them and prevent them from getting themselves into situations that are harmful, the better. And that's what we do. We go into schools, basically just about all school districts, not all, but we're in several school districts.
Hmm.
Again, we work with youth that are in churches. We not only intervention from alcohol, drugs, also we talk about sex, abstinence. We talk about the consequences. And again, we focus on self-esteem,
Hmm.
loving yourself, and it starts early. We start with elementary school kids.
Hmm.
Now, of course, when we talk about abstinence and sex and drugs, we're mainly catering to the high school kids, some middle, but mostly high school. But when you get into these conversations with them as a young child, you can assist them in knowing the difference and understanding that they have a choice and understanding what those choices are and how not to get themselves in situations, including human trafficking.
You mean how to protect themselves,
So,
and how
yes,
to question and when to say something
say
and
something.
things
And
like that.
may
That,
I interject one thing? I know
Yes.
that most people think middle school is where we should start, but kids as young as 8 and 9 are being pulled into trafficking.
Yes. Yes.
And
yeah,
so we actually start at 8. We do it.
Yes.
We talk about it age appropriately. So
exactly.
we're not going to, you know, have
Yeah,
a workshop with 8-year-olds and talk to them the same way we would talk to 15-year-olds. And we don't
correct,
talk to 15-year-olds the same way we would talk to 30-year-olds.
correct.
We do start at age 8 when we
Yes. And
do
we
our
started elementary as
yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's age appropriate. We actually use research-based curriculums
Mhm.
and what we talk about. And of course, like you said, with the older kids, we go more in depth. You know, it's age appropriate, it's different, but still the conversation is about self-esteem, how to make the right choices and decisions, understanding how to say no, you know, ways to say no. We have staff that are trained in these areas. And the program that I work with closely is mentoring, and it's for mentoring at risk youth, any at risk youth. And I'm sure some of these youth may have been in these situations that you explained. So we provide a mentor, a person that's there to guide them along with the staff. We serve as case managers, and basically, we're just assisting these youth. And the more that we understand human trafficking, which is why staff is provided with a great deal of training regarding human trafficking. And we always invite people to train us, update us, help us learn more. That way, the youth we're working with, we're better equipped to help them understand what it is and how not to fall into that trap.
So Miss Davis, we're looking at this because our topic is trauma and human trafficking, restoring through responses and resources. Today, what we're looking, because January is the recognition of human trafficking, and so we're looking at getting prepared for January and making a move in our community. And so you were talking about training. Some of the things that I'm hearing today reinforces the whole idea of us talking and connecting to looking at the mentoring process and training persons in the community, mental health coaches and other persons to actually be those mentors as well as others to know how to connect with other teens, other adults, other parents in the community. And so we're going to be pulling together, hopefully and prayerfully, a task, not only a task force, but a group of people that can actually take action and begin to see. So it's going to be important for us to recognize in the community what we see, what we think we see, what we don't see, how to respond appropriately, how to mentor, how to boost self esteem, how to do all of these things that we have set back to wait for others to do. When I say we, I mean people in the community kind of waiting for some special force to come through. So I know people like Sister Mama Sonia, we're going to be doing arts intervention around this topic and other top mentoring topics. So I think maybe we could take a few minutes to look at and discuss the kinds of responses that we need in the community. What's missing? For this to grow like this, out of bounds, something has to be missing.
I think it's going to take some collaborating. Collaboration is key. I think
Hmm.
if we get together, it's going to take some conversation like we're having.
Hmm.
Yes.
Finding out, okay, you do this, you do this, you do that. How can we connect to work? We're working with you. So, how can we connect the dots here?
Yeah.
How can, what can we do to help the youth you work with? Vice versa. What resources do you have that we don't have?
Yes.
And pull them together. It's going to take collaboration of many groups, organizations, and collaborating on resources.
So in January, it's just so good to hear you say that. In January, it is our plan to pull together this community connect. We have a community connect, as you know, we've been talking about bringing together these people to make it happen. different organizations that are already doing things, and instead of repeating and building the
Mhm.
forces. And the other thing is, and so we are on that track. That is it. And I know after this talking today, we will be adding on, to build the community connect. And Sister Mama Sonia is on there. We also have child development groups and other groups that are on there. So one of the things that I noticed is that when we're in the community, that some children can be put in cars, and whether they're at Walmart, whether they're at the grocery store, someone can walk up and grab a child's hand, and the person next to them may not even recognize what the people look like. So, in other words, what I'm saying is, we're it starts with paying attention to our environment and caring about our children, caring about what's
Definitely.
happening around us.
Most
And
definitely.
Yes,
you see,
yes, Dr. Lewis. That's why I always tell every awareness workshop we do, I always end it by saying, today it is someone else's niece, someone else's nephew, someone else's son, someone else's daughter. Tomorrow, and I just leave it like that.
Mm.
Tomorrow
yes,
it may
yes,
be, and and all of us are smart enough to fill in that blank. Now,
right.
tomorrow it may be your daughter. We also have a minister who is part of our organization who he lost one of his nieces. She literally lost her life being involved in human trafficking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know, and so we often have him to give his testimony, give his experience with what happened to her, because so many people in our community, yes, it starts with collaboration, but hand in hand with collaboration is we have got to first accept that this is real.
It's real. Mhm.
Hmm.
And that it could touch our lives, because that's the other thing. Like people see the movie Taken. I get that so many times. That's why I use it as an example, because most
Mhm.
people have seen that movie. And so in that movie, you didn't see a lot of young ladies that look like the young ladies that are on, like we look on this session today. And so a lot of times there's that misconception that this happens to other people, and that leaves our children vulnerable. Also, we
Yes.
think we have little good girls and little good
Mhm.
boys. And I know Ms. Davis said that they're not faith-based. We are faith-based. And one of the things that I have noticed is that, especially with kids who go to church, including my own church, I've been told my kids don't need that. They're good girls, they're good boys. This isn't going to happen to them, but it could. And in
Mhm.
fact, that's one of the reasons that Sister Mama Sonia and I and some others started Restoration Life Project. That's one of the voids I was referring to earlier, is that so many, especially in our church communities, in our faith-based communities,
Mhm.
do not think this could ever touch their lives. And it could. It leaves our kids vulnerable when we think that what could happen to this kid over here could never happen to ours.
Hmm. And I have this one person that I worked with. So the parent was saying, "Oh, my child goes to dance. She's been in dance for years.
Mhm.
She's in all these performances." And what was happening is that the dance teacher was grooming this young girl over the time, and the dance teacher had her into some kind of partying event where he was passing her around, and the mother never really knew.
Mhm.
She
Those
never
kind of
really
things
knew. She was just
happen.
so proud of her being in this business, being able to do these performances. And that's exactly what was going. But he had her thinking that if she told anybody, she would lose out on all of those opportunities, and plus she would not get the support of these people. I guess evaluate people on evaluator, or people that support you through these dance missions or whatever.
Right.
But
Well,
for years he had that happen. The only way it stopped was that there was another um what you call it performance, and the young girl went to the new performance, with a new promoter for an event in another state or country or something. And this person found out about it. That's the only way told, well, what do you do with your time? You see, and found out exactly what was going on. This is for real here in Houston.
Right.
Mhm.
Well,
Was.
just like our guest speaker for our conference we had in January of this year, she was trafficked, started at age 10 by one of her elementary school teachers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That wasn't in Houston, but it was here in Texas.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to
Yeah.
know what maybe we could talk about now. What are the responses? What can we do with our training, which we're getting ready to have? What can we do? What kind of training? What do we need to do in the community with leaders? What do we need to do? Okay, please let's come up with some resources. And I know Ms. Davis has access to some resources that could help people who are out of pocket, who feel that they cannot go back home or feel that they need this or this training. So, and I know that you know about, please let's all talk. I know Sister Mama Sonia knows about changing attitudes through movement, drama, music. So let's talk about realistically what we can do. And let's see if we can take the next 5 minutes and come up with something that we're going to have an action for.
Well, I would say that again, we can look at collaborating. Maybe I can start with connecting with Dr. Webb in providing some training forums with not only with staff, but also with youth.
Yes.
Maybe to speak to the youth. Set
Mhm.
up. We have several youth programs. Like I said, we're in school, and unfortunately, due to the pandemic, everything is remote right now.
Yes.
Everything is online. But it might be a good thing that we can do it this way because we can reach larger numbers.
Yes.
So maybe engaging in having Dr. Webb speak to some of our youth. We also host an annual youth summit, which over 400 youth are invited. And of course, each year we look to up that goal. We can have Dr. Webb as one of the speakers or someone talking about trafficking. This would be a wonderful forum to talk to a large number of youth at one time at
So,
our youth summit.
so
So
what
that
we
would
did,
be one way.
maybe we can collaborate. So we talked about this fundraising supporting idea, and so we're targeting the human trafficking as that group that we're going to support. So what we're looking at is setting up a connecting with you and other people for an ongoing youth intervention. You don't want to call it Save Our Youth, but we'll come up with something through the Community Connect. But it would actually be if you could help us pull together maybe the youth and parents. And
Yes.
we would begin to look at training the parents. We're going to also train congregations and then have a youth connect, a youth forum connect. And Sister Mama Sonia, we've asked to do healing through the arts.
Hmm.
So if you could see this merging together through from the collaboration and benefit all groups, and we could talk after this. Because this is real. This is something we started last year, last January, looking at it. And now we know that this is something that will connect the families around healing within the families and also the young people and also bringing the faith-based organizations in and whatever they're doing. And see, that will bring the holistic
Hmm.
concept to it And at the same time, we'd be able to fortify everything already existing. It'd just be, it will be coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm.
I think we should follow. This is sounding good. We could follow after this and begin talking with young people and get them on the collaborative team as
That
well as
sounds wonderful.
parents. Hmm. So, what are your thoughts about that?
That sounds great, Dr. Lewis. I can certainly connect you with Miss Helen Stagg, who is our CEO,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and
Hmm.
we can I can arrange and schedule, find out what her schedule is, and have have us all talk and see what we can do to collaborate on this issue.
Right. And so I thought maybe what we could do, the very next step, is we would come together and meet with the community connect group, and we would plan, Sister Mama Sonia, if you understand, we would
Mm-hmm.
bring this into the community connect group as part of and be that collaboration. And
Right.
then we would have something, and then the lady that you sent, and we're going to look at fundraising, and this would be the target fundraising. I think Miss Stagg would then realize the seriousness of it, and would want to follow up with it because it would already have an energy to it. Would already be ready, so she would not have to try to formulate it or something like that. She's going to ask, "What are you trying to do?" And so I thought we'd be able to say something. And I would like for you to be, as of course, be an integral part to
Mm-hmm.
that. Mhm. So I think we worked this morning, did we not? And I believe, I really believe that when we talk about stuff, if you talk about it and you don't come up with a resolution, solution, or
Mm-hmm.
idea about moving, it's not complaining.
Right.
So therefore, I was always taught, and then I want to hear one remark from each one of you, that if you talk about something and there's a problem or a circumstance or situation, you must try to look at it and begin to think about, what can I do? You see. And so that's where we are. And so I thought maybe each one of us could give, that was my tip. And so if each one of us could say something, one thing that you heard or that you think you can do, that you think needs to be done by someone, or what's important.
I would
Well,
say, oh, go
no,
ahead,
go on.
Doctor.
Go on.
Miss Davis. Uh-huh.
I would say I would be more aware of
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. Um, as you and Dr. Webb mentioned, sometimes it could be happening under your nose.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm, mhm. Very
So with that, I would be more aware
important.
and introduce the conversation more with our young people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Sister Mama Sonia.
Well, I was going to back up on what you just said. Someone has this slogan: if you see something, say something. A lot of times when you can see some stuff in the stores or whatever, and it just doesn't feel right. Sometimes maybe you could talk to that person, just kind of engage them to see what's going on. But if you see something that's wrong, because I was about to report something from a bus incident, and they just disappeared. So become more aware of your circumstances and become more aware of your surroundings. Because I don't care what kind of neighborhood you live in, it's under your nose.
Hmm. Okay, Dr. Webb.
All right, and I just want to reiterate what Ms. Davis and Sister Mama Sonia said about being aware. Every last one of us has seen human trafficking. We just didn't know what we were looking at.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Mm-hmm.
now that I know as much as I do, looking back at circumstances that happened prior to me getting involved in the movement, that yes, I
Hmm.
did indeed see it. And seeing it can save lives. There was a case in the United Kingdom where an airline stewardess noticed that something didn't seem right with a young lady and the man that she was on the plane with. She saved that young lady's life. That young
Right.
lady was
Mm-hmm.
being
That's what
taken
I'm
to
saying.
another country being taken to another country to be sold as a sex
Right.
slave. So
Well,
just knowing
I
is
think we
important.
have really hit home, and I'm rushing. I know our time is about out. And what I want to do is thank you for being here today. And it's not over. We're going to follow up with this, and we'll set a meeting this afternoon. We will set a time that we can move forward with
Mhm.
this. And I want to thank all of you for being here. Miss Davis from Change Happens, Sister Mama, Sonia from Three Sisters in the Spirit, and Dr. Webb. Thank you so much. Audience, I want to thank you for listening to this topic, Mending Threads, a transformation series. And remember this: renew beliefs, rebuild faith, and reconnect with families and communities. For it is not the circumstances we meet, it is the manner in which we respond that determines
Mhm.
health, happiness, and success. And I'll see you next week, same time, same place. And remember, this airs um, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. So get on and let us know what topic you would like to know more about. If you want to be on the show and you can be helpful to the community, please give us a call at 281-381-2276. And our website is wrc-houston.com. Sign up, please, for community mental health coaching and make a change and be the leader in your community. Thank you, and I'll see you on next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.